Today on the Videomaker podcast, we talk to a friend of the show, Jason Miller. Jason is a longtime freelancer for Videomaker who's written articles and reviews for us. He also used to work with Chris here in town doing commercials for the TV station. He's been in visual effects in Hollywood. He has done TV shows, shot TV shows like this hunting show, which has an interesting story behind it. We'll hear on the episode. And also he is the promotions manager for a TV station in Sacramento and has won an Emmy for his work there. So a really interesting conversation with Jason. Hope you enjoy it. One disclaimer I'll throw out there before we start. The audio is not fantastic on this episode. I think there was just like a slow internet connection or something. It's perfectly audible. You can hear what he has to say, but if you're sensitive to imperfect audio, the sort of internet kind of warbly sound, this is a heads up that there's a little bit of that in this episode, so sorry about that. And on that note, hopefully you can ignore that audio when you go to iTunes or Spotify. If you like this podcast, and give us a 5-star review, hit the subscribe button in both places, subscribe or follow or heart or whatever it is on Spotify. It's a really big help for podcasts like ours. So without further ado, let's get started. But first, I want to quickly make you aware of Videomaker's email newsletter. It's full of great Videomaker articles covering the art and technology of video production. You'll find how-to articles that cover the concepts and principles of visual storytelling, reviews of the latest video cameras and software, a roundup of the latest video news, buyer's guides that cover everything from camera support, computers, field monitors, and tons more. Plus, if you want to get alerts about our free instructional webinars and receive invitations to our in-person networking events across the United States, the Videomaker email newsletter is the best way to stay up to speed. Sign up today at videomaker.com/newsletter. That's videomaker.com/newsletter. Now, on to the show. Welcome to the Videomaker podcast. I'm Mike Wilhelm, and with me, as always, this time across the table, Haley LaPlante.
Hello.
And today, special guest, Jason Miller. Jason, how's it going?
Doing great. Happy to be here.
Good. And Chris is on vacation today, and I have it on good authority that he is just sort of sitting around playing video games when he could be on the podcast, so I don't know what's going on there. So Jason has been a Videomaker freelancer for quite some time, I guess several years now. Done a number of reviews for us, a number of articles for us, and as well you have been in the local and regional TV industry, doing commercials and promotions for news and the like. But actually, before we get into kind of the work that you do as your day job, you recently had your hands on the R5 in preparation for writing a review for Videomaker. So maybe I figure we could start there and just sort of pick your brain about, what's it been like? There's been a lot of anticipation for this camera. You're one of the few people who have had his hands on it. So what are your thoughts so far?
It's a weird camera, and not in the way I expected. So I don't want to spoil any anything, but the 8K is exciting. The 8K RAW is exciting, but as most of anyone has heard, it starts overheating at like 10 minutes in on 8K RAW or 8K any format. So it's essentially a 4K camera that doesn't do RAW, but has a pretty decent image with the best focus tracking I've ever used. You see all the headlines about 8K RAW and how exciting that is, and to me that's BS. The exciting thing is I had a heck of a time trying to break the focus tracking, whether it was on a person or a dog or a random object. The headline for me is the best darn tracking you can get on a camera.
So that's great news for a selection of video shooters. But maybe your assessment about 8K and RAW is a little bit of a disappointment. I mean, people kind of knew if they're following the news here that the overheating was an issue. But it sounds like you're saying it's I don't want to say unusable, but I guess maybe just unreliable.
Too hot to handle.
Oh, go ahead.
I was making a joke, too hot to handle. It was a terrible joke.
So it does get really hot. You pull the media out, it's more than just warm. And it's not just an inconvenience. This is not a camera that could be used in any professional capacity at 8K or extensive high-speed use. I mean, I mentioned this in my review. About the only application I can see using the 8K for, and maybe this is because of my history in visual effects, but like this is, the 8K can just be used for shooting VFX plates here and there. Like that's no way, and I would ever use 8K on a professional shoot. I mean, all the other 8K problems aside, you know, storage and just all that aside, the overheating is a deal breaker. Done. And like what I would have to do is like it'd start overheating and I'd pull it off the tripod, put it in my refrigerator, you know, next to the leftovers, and like let it sit for like 30 to 45 minutes. And then the only way I could figure out to speed that up would be to pull the media out and put both of them on the refrigerator rack. And then that was like 20 minutes. But it's bad.
So this is like one of the areas where the clear, like the body, the form factor of this, you know, hybrid style camera is a big weakness, right? If this is a camcorder, they'd have heat sinks in there or fans or something to keep things in check, but just can't be done with this form factor. No.
You look at any other camera that's shooting, you know, 4K RAW or especially 4K like and above, they have fans and like they're big and like you can distribute the heat. This is like, I think they're just running into a science problem. Like it's physics. There's no place for the heat to go.
Yeah, so
I mean, people are going to start melting cards. That's inevitable.
Oh man, ideally the overheating factor, you know, the idea that the thing's going to shut down when it gets too hot, hopefully will prevent the cards from being destroyed. Although I guess those cards don't last forever. You know, eventually they're just gonna die from repeated overheating.
And I probably shouldn't say this since it's getting recorded. Like, you know, you're supposed to shut the camera down off when it starts blinking, overheating. I was like, how much more noisy is the footage going to get if I keep going? So I kept pushing it until it would, you know, not record anymore.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, how often, there's got to be tons of video shooters that are going to set up their camera and hit record and walk away from it, right? Because they're in front of the camera, or, you know, it's just sort of like sitting somewhere while they're operating a different camera. So that's a use case that is got to be common.
Well, and like my first shoot I took it on, and I mentioned this in my review, I was so jazzed about this camera that I drove it out to Bodega Bay, which is about, 2.5 hours from here, and always 55 degrees with a nice breeze, beautiful shoot, and it was overheating on the beach.
Wow.
I mean, like, you can't get a better scenario to shoot and like it shouldn't have overheated.
So, you know, this camera aside, you know, 8K in general is like, would you ever use 8K at least, you know, in the next few years anyways, outside of those VFX plates, like you said?
No, I mean, I freelance a lot on working on independent features. And like most of them, you know, are shot in 6K, but finished in something smaller. Like 8K is just excessive. Like it seems like it's reserved for like the Jane Camerons of the world. Who are like, hey, I shot my film in 8K. Even though everyone's going to stream it at like 720 or 1080. Plus, like, really, can anyone distinguish the difference between like 2K and 4K, let alone like 4K, 6K, 8K, or like 12K? Like, it's ludicrous. I mean, but one thing I didn't mention that is exciting is that it is an 8K sensor. And so it oversamples down to 4K beautifully. The 4K looks better than the 8K. Which makes sense.
Yeah, especially if you're not watching it on a giant close-up 8K screen, I guess, right?
Seriously.
Now, we do have a freelancer who was excited about this camera, and I say was because, you know, the overheating issues are clearly a thing, but they were going to use the 8K for real estate video. I guess in those cases, the extra high level of detail can sometimes be helpful, or, you know, taking a bunch of images or videos of a house or a home, the inside, it's nice to be able to punch in here or there. Or maybe perhaps, I don't think they're doing this, but they could do some stitching, I guess, if they're doing some crazy spherical thing. But at least our freelancer had, you know, some use for 8K outside of, you know, the typical needs. But I guess folks like him are out of luck, at least for this camera for now.
Unless they can find a way to put it in like an ice box and like surround it by like ice packs.
Yeah, well, like you say, this is a science thing. This is a physics thing, right? Like the processor is just working so hard that it's going to get hot, and you got to cool it. I don't know any better way to do that. I guess maybe they could rewrite the software or something in such a way that isn't so demanding. But I don't know. I'm not an engineer, so I can't really speak to it. But I don't see them solving this problem. At least with this one camera.
About firmware updates, but like I don't see how that's going to change anything.
Yep. I mean, we'll see what happens, I guess, right?
That's true. Fair.
So the autofocus is quite good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like a good camera to compare it to is like I interviewed the Lumix S1H,
yeah,
which also has supposedly a pretty good tracking. Just blew that out of the water. Like one of the things I tried to break it at was because it's got animal tracking, and I was like, how good is that gonna work? So I went in my backyard with my 2 German Shepherds, and I turned it on, and I had the R50 millimeter lens. I bumped it down to 1.2, which is ludicrous. Like, and then I followed my dogs as they ran hot laps around the yard, and it almost never slipped. It was perfect, and they're like near black dogs, and so it was even more impressive.
Yeah, that is good. I remember we used to shoot videos here at Videomaker using the 50 millimeter 1.2. This was back on the 1DX, not even 1DX, 1D Mark IV. But that was like, everyone's had this experience, I think, where you're shooting an interview, a medium shot with a 1.2, and if someone's like rocking back and forth or they move a few inches here or there, you're kind of lose focus. And it's a shame because that shot is otherwise, pretty stunning if focus can hold on. So it's good to hear that it holds quite good, even those extreme circumstances like chasing a German Shepherd.
Well, this would be really great for documentary filmmakers or like journalists. Like there's a lot of, especially at TV stations, it's the journalist and their camera. They don't have a photographer, and so they end up shooting themselves a lot. But with this focus tracking, they can do walk and talks, towards away from the camera, and it would be perfect. Like it's fantastic.
We have a situation here, which actually that would come in handy in that actually will. I guess everyone will see it next week when Chris returns, when they have to get back to the 3-shot. But in this this new studio that we're in one angle, the wall is like 3 feet behind the person when they're sitting in the spot. It's usually the brick wall background that you see sometimes. And I don't know, it just looks kind of like a dull and crummy shot. It's like, someone's doing a set at the Improv or something. So getting that super shallow depth of field is obviously appealing, right? Because we can at least do something there to get some separation from the backdrop. But with all of our other cameras, we kind of run into that same thing where, the subject has to sit there, or in this case, I guess it'll be Chris. I'll have to sit there and just like, don't move. You're going to get out of the focal point. Yeah, exactly. So any other observations, I guess, about the camera before we move on?
The RAW is a bit chunky or crunchy. It's a little noisy. That's not super surprising for Canon RAW, but like it's a little noisy, and you have to shoot kind of perfectly. Otherwise, it's just not a real clean image. However, RAW isn't for most scenarios, and shooting the all-eye was amazing. It looked super clean. The problem with the RI, though, is that, the all-eye, not RI, is that it shoots in H.265, right? Which is relatively new, but doesn't play real well with Premiere or Resolve. And so that's a bit of a challenge. I just ended up transcoding everything to, ProRes for, so it'd be smooth. But that was a problem.
Yeah, it is kind of irritating that H.265 still has problems. Or maybe it's an Adobe problem or a Blackmagic problem, but it's been around for a while. I remember we shot on we reviewed the Samsung NX1 back in like 2014 or something. I don't remember how long ago it was. That shot 4K to H.265, and nothing worked with it. At the time, you couldn't even play it. You had to put it, transcode it just to watch the footage. But I remember us talking about it at the time, thinking, "Oh, this sucks now," but wait a year or two, and this will all be worked out. And it really hasn't been worked out. You can watch the files now in your operating system, but it really has been no easier to work with. It seems like.
No, it's kind of a pain.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on, Jason, I kind of gave you a little bit of a really high-level introduction, but why don't you just give us an idea or a summary of what is your history with video? How did you get started, and what was your path from that point to where you are today?
So I've worked in most corners of the industry, kind of making my way into everything. I started off, like probably everyone, running around with camcorder in the woods, shooting horror movies, and being silly. And I weaseled my way into a job at a TV station, shooting and editing. From there, I taught myself After Effects and Nuke. Moved to Southern California, worked in visual effects. Realized that that's not fun. Like the hours are just like, you're coming up on like a deadline, and so you work 12, 14-hour days, 7 days a week, because like when we were working on, I was working on Transformers 3, they set the date 2 years ago, so they're not moving it, and so you hit the deadline or you're fired. Mm-hmm. So did that, moved back, then I did a lot of freelance stuff, doing stuff for digital startups, different marketing material. I worked on a hunting show briefly, which was interesting. That thing teaches you how to shoot quickly and on the move, and trying to shoot people shooting birds. Found my way back into local TV, and I've kind of been there since. I'm out of Sacramento right now, but now I'm kind of back in visual effects, despite wanting to get out of it. I work a lot as a visual effects supervisor for independent features, so I do a lot of that on the side. And that's one thing that this was. I played around with this canvas for one of the features I'm working on now. We had to shoot some blood hits and some other VFX elements. And this worked really well for that.
So interesting that you mentioned that you worked VFX and it was no fun. That's one of the things that you hear a lot of, or you see a lot of, right? Where they're really young kids who they're making videos at home and they're doing really fun stuff, right? Like doing lightsaber duels or something, right? Or they're following After Effects tutorials on YouTube, and they're really enchanted by what happens in this process. And then you get into the industry, and like you said, it's a lot of hard work. And one thing that I don't think people understand is VFX artists spend an insane amount of time on singular shots. You're not churning out shot after shot every day.
No. I remember having to rotoscope Shia LaBeouf because for that they didn't do a lot of green screen stuff, and so I literally spent weeks on a couple dozen frames. It's crazy. It's not nearly as romantic as I still love running around and throwing aliens in the sky or lightsabers and doing all the stupid fun stuff, but when you really get down into the Hollywood stuff, it wasn't for me. And I'm glad that there's a whole industry of people who love it, but it's not me.
Yeah, so rotoscoping, for anyone who's unaware of this process or unfamiliar with it, it's a lot of tracing lines, right? You're drawing lines around edges of things. In this case, Shia LaBeouf, I guess you're tracing the outline of Shia LaBeouf over and over and over again for weeks, I guess, right? You said for a few dozen frames.
Work on that probably took me a week or more, a little more. But the real tough part is flyaway hairs. Mm-hmm. Haley, you can see little hairs up above her head.
Oh, thank you.
Each shot, you just kind of roto those out. No, I wasn't criticizing you. Everyone has them. You just have a backlight so you can see them. But those are the biggest pain because they're a pixel wide.
Yeah.
So you do your main roto and then you go in. Say you're doing it in After Effects, you use strokes for each hair. It's tedious.
So it's a little more than your Facetune app.
A bit, yeah. But it is kind of crazy because, like, with AI and all the tech that's coming out now, a lot of it just the computer can figure it out. And like, I was at this cinematography training in May of last year, and I got to talk to this gentleman who is developing a lot of the new technology to replace green screens, and they're using depth. I don't know if you've seen this, so where they use cameras, and they create a depth mat based on the interocular distance of the cameras, and they pull the key based on where things are in Z space. And so you could really just get a perfect key anywhere. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I guess maybe the next version of that, I don't know if they're doing it now. If not, they probably will soon, where you can do that without the chroma key, right? Where it could just be any old background, but you can identify objects based on how far away they are from the lens or something, I would imagine, right? So that even the keying isn't a big deal. It's like you choose the person, and whatever person is on that plane of focus, I guess, they're the ones that stay in the shot.
Yeah, I think a lot of those use like difference mats to they'll be like, oh, this is the constant. Anything new, we'll keep.
Yeah. So it's like a hybrid approach of using some depth map plus the contrast in the colors to pick out that subject.
Yeah, I was told that by this guy who's God, I wish I could remember his name. He's pretty well known in the industry. He was saying green screens are going to be obsolete, in a few years.
Yeah,
because it's just the technology is just going to outpace. And green screens are pretty antiquated technology. We've better tools now, but like creating mats from green and blue goes back decades.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, the scary thing is when you say that green screens are going to be a thing of the past. First of all, that means probably a lot of people who are doing work in the visual effects industry are going to be a thing of the past, right? In terms of that as a profession.
It's changing. And so like you look at like The Mandalorian, right? Where they didn't really use green screens. They used a newer version of like rear projection. And so VFX artists are going to be a lot closer to game engineers because they're using, gaming engines for a lot of this.
Yeah.
So the artist is going to change a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think films are going to be more VFX heavy and not less moving forward.
That's probably true. It just seems like that processors and software are going to pick up a lot of the slack where human beings are doing work now. Well,
especially with face replacement now, any idiot can hop on the internet and like put their face on Tom Cruise's body and run around in Mission Impossible, and it looks better than the industry was doing even just a few years ago.
Yep. So that kind of stuff is getting easier and easier every year, like by leaps and bounds. And even beyond that, software is getting better. Although I don't know that it's ever going to replace humans, but at making editorial decisions where you just dump a bunch of footage into a piece of software and it spits out an edited piece of work that tells a story. Now we may be decades off of the point where that type of thing is done by Hollywood. But as it is now, consumers are doing it, right? They just load all their home video into a piece of software and it makes a video. I wouldn't be surprised if eventually, AI becomes smart enough, I guess, to be able to make editorial decisions like that. But certainly software in general and AI is playing an incredible role in the industry today, and it will probably continue to grow its presence there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's take a quick break. I want to come back and ask you about your work in local TV. So we'll take a quick break and come back and talk about that. For years, Videomaker has been producing quality video training to help you take your video skills to the next level. Now you can access it all with a Videomaker Plus account. We've got courses covering it all. From learning about how to navigate your camera with our course on camera controls and settings, to learning about color grading or even how to start a video business, Videomaker Plus has something for you. The Videomaker library's content is split into 4 levels. If you're just starting, try our inexpensive starter level membership, which gives you access to essential video training and a digital subscription to Videomaker magazine. For the most professional training, go all the way up to our professional tier membership, which gives you access to our entire library of training and covers advanced concepts like running a video business or becoming a documentary filmmaker. Plus, the professional tier is the only membership with access to our popular webinar recordings. Get started today for as little as $1.67 a month, $1.67. Sign up today at videomaker.com/VM+. That's videomaker.com/VM+. All right, and we're back. Okay, so Jason, is this appropriate that you're here today when Chris is on vacation? Because I get to ask this question, and you can answer honestly. What was it like working with Chris Monlux?
Well, I'll be honest, because he's not my boss anymore. He may be a cool dude, but he's just a horrible person to work with. Appalling. He's that guy that would eat your food out of the refrigerator, fart in your office. Like, not cool stunts, just a bad person. No, Chris is a cool dude. I do miss working with him.
Yes,
he never did it. Well, he might have stolen my food. I don't know. But like, he was a pleasure to work with.
So you guys did commercials here in town. Let's see, how long were you guys there together at the same time? Just a short overlap, right?
About a year, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
I am in his debt though, because what year was it? It was when the Giants went to the World Series. I had been there for like a week, and someone gave me World Series tickets, but they were the next day. And I was like, Chris, I know I just started, but can I please have tomorrow off? I want to go to the World Series, man. And he was pretty cool about it.
Did they win that year?
Yeah. That was Game 5 of 2014.
And they've sucked ever since.
Oh, it's bad.
I'm a Dodgers fan, so I like to talk crap about the Giants.
Well, you know what? You guys are doing pretty good. Like,
we're killing it, yeah.
It sucks that you're doing so good during COVID.
Hey, you know what? It is what it is. We're good. We're doing good. We're going to win the World Series this year. You just wait.
Totally.
I feel like World Series
it's
2020.
Honestly a shame you haven't sooner.
We got screwed a little bit. This is like totally off topic discussion. Okay. We dealt with some cheaters and some other stuff. I'm not even going to get into it. But anyway, let's get back on track here.
The World Series, the next one has to have an asterisk next to it, right? Like, yes, so-and-so won, but actually they didn't play that many games, and,
it's still more games than a football season.
I think it would be better just to have shorter season anyway. Like, baseball season's so long, and this like forces people to forces teams to just act quickly and more efficiently and play better, I guess, in a shorter amount of time.
And the games are going faster, which is nice.
Yeah.
I have to imagine, just to try to tie this back to video production, if you have to work, if you're working in television, in the year of the pandemic, doing the production for a baseball game is probably pretty good, right? Like, how far away from the action are the camera operators there? They've got to be like 500 yards away or something, right?
Oh, at least, man. Like, you're definitely adhering to CDC social distancing.
Yeah, there's no one in the crowds or anything.
Oh yeah, football starts this weekend anyway. Sorry, I just random thought. Football.
Same thing for them, I guess. So you went from making the commercials locally, which we won't get too deep into the details of that. Chris has talked about it quite a bit, to going to VFX. Is that right?
Yes.
And then you came back to do the promotions work in Sacramento? So
I left Southern California. I'm from Redding, so I moved back up to Redding with my girlfriend at the time for any number of reasons. But I ended up doing a lot of just freelance work for like startups, churches, just whatever I can get my hands on. Then I worked on this appalling hunting show, which is, if you know me, like, it's kind of weird because I'm not a big gun guy.
So it's appalling because it was hunting related? Is that it?
So yeah, I mean, no. So it was appalling because it wasn't good. But like, I never really did a lot of hunting growing up, and so I didn't realize, I don't want to like gross anyone out, but like, say like you go bird hunting and you shoot it out of the sky, right? And then it falls down. Well, all the time it's not dead. And so they grab it and they wring its neck, and then you hear and like crunch, and it's not pleasant. Or if the dog gets to it and the dog isn't particularly well trained, he'll do the work for you. You just start shaking it and running around.
Yeah,
But,
I've gone hunting once and only once when I was a kid, and it's same experience where, you know, my friend's dad shot a bird of some kind, fell out of the sky. The dog went to get it. The dog shook it, brought it back, but it wasn't dead. So it was my buddy's job, and when I say my friend, I'm talking about a 9-year-old kid, to take the bird and break its neck. You know, it's like.
It's kind of horrifying.
Yeah. Well, you know, some people like it, I guess.
No, I'm not. Most of my family hunts, like, you know, to each their own. I'm just, I guess, too sensitive for such things.
So what sounds scary about that to me, I don't mind guns. I grew up around guns. Not a big hunter, but guns are fun as far as I'm concerned. But at the same time, I don't know about you, Jason, but whenever I shoot video, I always get like this blindness out of my left eye. You know, I try to, you know, I'd shoot on camcorders, or if I'm shooting with a DSLR or whatever, I'll get one of the viewfinders that you can sort of put on the back. And I'm looking through that with my right eye, and even though I keep my left eye open, I'm kind of blind to what's going on out there, and that would make me super, super nervous if guns were around, where you're only kind of seeing what's through the viewfinder.
So it would, looking back, there was a lot of dumb decisions I made to get the shot, because like all hunting shows look the same, and they're all shot from the back, especially the bird ones. They're never, for obvious safety reasons. And me being really excited about wanting to do something different and cool, I was like, and being a filmmaker, I was like, we need to shoot them from the front. And so I have really bad hearing right now. Apart from going to a lot of concerts when I was a kid, but from working this hunting show, you know, you want the shot where they, you know, the bird flies and they spin around, and you want it to go over the camera and then shoot. So what I would often do, like the dog would point, we'd know where it was. I'd go around to where I think the guy's going to point, get down, and they'd flush the dog, and then the guy would fly over, the hunter would shoot over me. But like, you think a shotgun is really loud when you're shooting it. I mean, I grew up shooting shotguns, so I know how loud they are. But when you're on the front side of it, it's like someone takes an ice pick and is just like right in your ear. Like, it's not fun.
Also, just being on that side of the gun is not a good feeling.
It was stupid. Yeah, really dumb. And like, yeah, you're right. Like if you're shooting on a camera, like we were shooting with, you know, mostly shoulder cameras. And so, yeah, you're looking through here, kind of open your other eye, but it's real easy to be stupid and step in front of someone, or like even like just holes in the ground. Like anyone who shot like outside, like documentaries or anything, it's pretty easy to, you know, be running along or even just walking, and then you just kind of step in a hole and face plant and, you know, lens into the mud.
So did you have a producer with you to help spot you for those kinds of things?
Yeah, we had a field producer who did half of that, and I did the other half. It helps a little bit, but you're usually so far apart that accidents happen.
Yeah. So you eventually made it down to Sacramento, doing promotion work. And so you're back at a TV station, doing basically marketing, but this time for the station rather than their clients, I guess. Maybe you could describe to us, like, what is the difference between those two jobs? How is your day-to-day different? What is the stress level like when you're making promotions for the station versus commercials? So
it's most basic level, it's the exact same. You're promoting a service or a product, or like the fundamentals of marketing are all the same. The difference really is that when you're doing the station versus a client, you're judged on the success of said ads, not whether they're able to sell the ads again. So, you know, the effectiveness of my efforts is judged on, you know, Nielsen ratings or app downloads or, you know, any of our other metrics. So it is a lot more challenging, especially these days with, you know, I can't really go out and shoot our talent because of COVID. Yeah. And so we have a lot of them shooting themselves now and having to come up with creative solutions. But yeah, sorry, I diverted a little bit.
Yeah, so that dynamic that you mentioned is important in that just like who are you working for and what is measurement of success really does differ, just like it does in any position that you're working in the video industry. So obviously it makes sense that, if you're working at a station making commercials for clients, the thing that the station is going to care about is did you get it done when it needed to be done so that they can bill the client when they're need to make their goals, I guess, and then did the client were they happy with it enough to where they just keep running it? I don't know what it was like at the station where you were at, but when I was doing it in cable, they would love it if a client made a commercial and then ran that same commercial constantly for years. Like, keeps the amount of work low, and they keep spending money on the ads where all the dollars were.
Totally.
But that dynamic doesn't exist when your job is to make effective ads, which I guess is the what you're doing, as the promotions manager.
Yeah, really, it's keep the client happy, and most of the time, the clients will say they would like the ads to increase sales, but a lot of the time, really, they just want to be on TV. Mm-hmm. And so they'll, like to your point, they'll keep running the same ad because they think they look great, or their kid looked cute, or their truck looked badass, or like any number of silly things that made them happy. Whereas, with us, we have to move the dial.
Yep. So I guess it would make sense. Maybe this is where the smartest business people who buy TV advertising have the same approach that your TV station does, right? Where they make the ad and then they're looking at the numbers afterwards to see like how many new widgets did I sell as a result of this ad going out, right? And what kind of tweaks can we make here to the commercial to sell more widgets? But the reality is a lot of at least local businesses aren't looking at it on that level of detail.
Well, it's a challenge because just because someone is really good at their small business, whatever that small business is, doesn't mean they're really good at marketing. Those are two totally different skill sets. And you run into this a lot with highly educated clients, such as doctors, lawyers, and financial advisors. They think because they are such an expert in one area that they are a really big expert in, say, marketing. And that's often a really big challenge. So if there's anyone with a small business listening, and you're going to a TV station, trust them because they know what they're doing.
Yeah. Or hire maybe an ad agency or something, someone that does the strategic work.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's kind of what we do with where I work is we position ourselves as an ad agency because we do stuff for both clients and the station. And we try to really hard to do more than just like a one-off, like, big, store closing, epic clearance, come down to Joe's, shoes and buy, everything. We try and see clients, through whole campaigns that are more conceptualized and more driven towards results. So which is exactly what we do as a station, right? So we come up with campaign ideas for our different products that are more than just a one-off spot that they run for 6 months, these campaigns, or longer.
Yeah, I think that's the wise thing to do. I mean, assuming that that the people who want to have their TV ads so that, because they think they look good on TV, assuming they're still happy as well, then all good. So you have over your left shoulder, I think it's your left shoulder, maybe it's your right, I can't tell right from left with these webcams, but you have an Emmy on the shelf over there. What's the story there? I don't know if everyone can see this because of the way the split screen works out, but maybe give us a story. Hey, there you go.
Yeah. Sorry, it's all backwards.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah, and the delay doesn't help. So we have a movie show at the station called Extra Butter, hosted by Marcus Allen, really good friend of mine, and he is able to go to a lot of the press junkets. He interviews celebrities, he does behind the scenes stuff. So we have this hour or half-hour long movie show every week, and so we wanted to do an ad for it. And a show like this gives you a little more flexibility to do something really creative. This was 3 years ago. We thought it'd be really fun to kind of do like the mannequin challenge And so he's wearing a tuxedo and he's walking through frozen time. It's a one-shot, 3-second one-shot on a gimbal tracking back. And we had, was it like 24 different cosplayers from different like movies? Like we had all the superheroes, we had the Ghostbusters. And with my VFX history, we were able to comp in a lot of the really cool, like the beams from the Ghostbusters. And he walked through it. And so we submitted it for an Emmy. And we won, which was kind of cool.
All right. So I thought you were going. I haven't seen that spot. I thought you were going to tell us about the one that you did. I don't remember how it came upon my radar. Maybe I saw it on social media or something, where it was like a song and dance routine. I want to say it was.
Okay. Funny story with that. That was right after La La Land.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And so we wanted to do for our morning show, a morning blend. It's kind of fun, lighthearted. I really wanted to do a musical number. And inspired by La La Land, we decided to do a 60-second single shot that started on a crane in the sky, crane down, detached from the crane, moved back and forth, and we had our talent, we wrote a song and music and had them do this song and dance as we followed them in this parking lot. We had, 6 principals and then like 80 extras / dancers and hardcore people. So it was one of the more proud things I'd ever done, just because we did it for $200. And we built like the rig, because we had an old a studio crane for one of the studios at the station that wasn't used. So old that the weights were literally lead. Like I used gloves.
Wow.
Weights. But we didn't have money, so we retrofitted it to be able to hold our Ronin and be able to detach on off. We wanted, just like La La Land, to start in the sky, crane down, detach, walk 20 feet in both directions, attach back on and go up. So that funny story about that is we got like crazy amount of recognition across the country. We won every ProMax award we submitted for. ProMax is like advertising awards, and we got put on their top 10 list for the year, which included not just local ads, but we were next to like HBO. We won an Addy, we won all sorts of crazy stuff. So I submitted it to an Emmy, and you don't know about if you work in TV, you have to pay for your submissions. And I had already won one, so I was like, I'm not going to do it again. But the rest of my crew was like, you know what, let's submit it. We're going to win. And so we submitted, and I was at Disneyland. As you can see, big Disney fan. And so I was at Disneyland when the nominees came down. And my friend texted me, and he goes, hey, nominees came down. We weren't even nominated. Yes. And I was at Disneyland when it came down. We didn't even get nominated. And I basically blurted out F the Emmys while standing in line at Disneyland with a bunch of small children around. I was livid because I was like, we didn't even get nominated. This is just so challenging, and we wrote a song to have our talent sing and dance it. But that's how it goes. Yeah,
well, that's a bummer too, because if you had just sort of followed your original gut and not submitted at all, it'd be no big deal. But
and I was out a few $100. Come on.
It's funny that the submission, the cost to submit for the Emmys was more than the budget for the spot.
I hadn't even thought. Oh my God! The cost of one Emmy to submit cost more than those 2 ads combined. Because the other one only cost us $100 in food for our actors.
Now we got to make sure to track these 2 spots down to put links in the description of the episode so people can see.
Files.
But the fact that this musical spot only cost a couple $100 sounds like a nightmare to me, in the sense that you said you had 80 extras, which means must have been really herding cats to get this thing put together. A bunch of people working for free, essentially. Yes.
So this is a great lesson for any independent filmmaker. There's a lot of people who are just excited to be part of something. So the dancers, we had several dozen dancers from a local dance troupe, adults who just danced as a way of, relieving stress. And they were trained by the head, forgive me, I don't know the name, the person who coordinates the cheerleaders for the Sacramento Kings. So this person, organized the dance crew on her side. So we said, hey, you want to be part of this? We developed a routine. We kind of worked with some hardcore guys who, these 18-year-olds who just want to do TV. Said, hey, here's kind of what we're looking for. We did a week of 10 rehearsals in the parking lot, just to make sure we nailed it. First full rehearsal with all people was the day of the shoot. But because we were so prepared and we planned a lot and did a lot of rehearsals, we did 6 takes and nailed it on the board.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a challenge, but like anytime you get a bunch of people who want to be part of something, it usually goes so much more smooth because everyone's just so excited and they want to do a really good job.
Yeah, usually with people who are doing stuff for free, the challenge is like get them to show up on time, because their incentive is just whatever incentive they have baked into their own, emotional investment of the whole project.
Right.
And that's kind of where it ends. But, a lot of times, especially when you're talking about, I don't know, did you say that these people were cheerleaders or the person who coordinated was a cheerleader?
Choreographed and organized the dancers I choreographer, I don't know, you call the person who organizes the cheerleaders for the Kings. But yeah, that's what she did.
Yeah, so I mean, it's one of those things where, because the TV station that this was for is in a pretty big market. Actually, what market is it? It's got to be up there.
We're
20. That you're going to get a lot of people who are just excited to be on a project that is like real, as opposed to someone who's just making something for YouTube or whatever, which could be nothing. That you got to have that going for you, I guess.
Totally, and like two of our people who are in it are pretty well known in the area. They're pretty famous personalities, which helped a lot. The other part is, and this is also a lesson for anyone who's trying to make an independent film, is like just getting people excited and wanting to be part of it is so important. And they'll show up just because they are jazzed about the vision and what this is going to be. It also didn't hurt that it was our Oscars ad, so we were able to say, hey, we're going to air this during the Oscars, in this market.
So how long did it take you to actually produce the whole thing? Would you say if you had to total up your hours from conceptualizing the idea to doing all the pre-production to shooting the thing and all that?
So this is where I flushed the numbers a little bit because my staff work on it, right? So I have an in-house crew of we have like 8 people. So when I said the budget, I didn't shoot them because they're already doing marketing stuff.
Yeah, right? they're already getting paid. So
we decided a month before that we wanted to do a big epic something for the Oscars. And then 3 weeks out, we decided exactly what it was going to be with a song and dance. And so we did 3 weeks to write, choreograph, come up with all the tech. And then post was 3 hours, 4 hours. I did it because we shot it right before I was, again, supposed to go to Disneyland. And so we shot it in the morning, nailed it. I went back to the office, cut it because it was a single take. We just took the music track, did some color, graphics, out the door. So yeah, about 3 weeks with 8-10 people working. We were really fortunate with my crew because one of my team members is really good with music, so he was able to write the music and coach our talent in singing it. Another guy on our crew used to be an AD in film. He worked on Fight Club, he worked on all sorts of big films, and so having him on set to be able to do that goes a long way. He was also brought a lot of rig training as an engineer background, so he was able to actually physically rig things up. And so having the right people, goes a long way.
So the music is something I hadn't even thought about, but the fact is, there's more than just writing the lyrics and getting people to sing it, I guess, right? There's the instrumentation, which maybe it's just because it's so outside of my area of expertise, it sounds like an impossible task. But was it all original instrumentation, or did you guys find a royalty-free karaoke track, or what?
Again, it's 3 weeks, no money. So we used First Comp now. I forget who it was before, but one of the stock music sites. We found a track we really liked that didn't have lyrics, and Sam, our friend of mine, good music guy, wrote the lyrics, and we tweaked it a little bit, and we were able to change some things up. But yeah, we couldn't have done it that quick if we were writing the music itself.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Especially, I mean, studio time would have been pretty expensive.
Yeah. That'd have been difficult unless you just like did the whole thing on a piano or something, and someone was a wizard there.
We could have. That would have been. Yeah, we did record all the vocals at the station in an old VO booth, and that worked out really well.
Nice.
With a $90 mic.
All right. Well, maybe if you'd used a $200 mic, you'd have won that Emmy.
Maybe. Yeah. I'm not bitter about it.
Okay, Jason, we're pretty much at time. So thanks for giving us an hour or so today to tell us about the R5 and give us your story. It was great.
Oh, dude, this was a lot of fun. It's always great to see you.
All right. Thanks, Jason. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Catch y'all next time. Big thanks to Jason Miller for joining us. If you want to watch either of those two spots that we discussed on the episode, you can go to the description of this episode, and there should be some YouTube links. You can check them out there. Also, if you like the podcast and you listen to it on occasion, we would love it if you went to iTunes or Spotify and follow us or subscribe there. It's a big help for podcasts like ours to grow and succeed. So for Hey Little Plant and everyone here at Videomaker, I'm Mike Wilhelm, and you've been listening to the Videomaker podcast. We'll catch you next time.